Good Wednesday night to all of you watching. All right, kind of makes us feel like you like us a little bit when you do that.
Yeah.
Jessie, Coffield, Emerson, Lotzia. This is DraftKings' nightly show called The Sweat, and our rundown is jam-packed with advice you need. You just don't know it yet.
Tons of it coming your way. Talking regular season NFL odds as well as for the PGA Tour Championship and my conversation with Mike Brasso. So get excited.
Nice, brah. Okay, an 11-game slate in baseball, though, sounds delicious. And these three are here to satisfy my craving. DK Live, Steve Buchanan, Brian Entrikin of the Quanta Edge, and the owner of DFSR.com, Mr. Doug Norrie, smack dab in the middle on your screen. It's time for Take Your Pick. Steve, two big totals on the DK Sportsbook tonight. The Angels and Rangers set at 10.5. Red Sox and Phillies set at 11.5. Please take your pick. Which one is more likely to hit the over?
Yeah, I'm going to go here with the Red Sox and the Phillies game. I mean, the Red Sox are averaging 5.8 runs per game at Fenway Park, only second to the Rockies, who average the most runs at home this season. The wind's blowing out at Fenway Park, and now we got Drew Smyly taking the hill, who's averaging 2.8 home runs over 9 innings this season. I mean, this is just a horrific spot for Drew Smyly here. I think the Red Sox alone could put up a ton of runs in this matchup here. There's a lot to like about this game here at Fenway Park.
All right, Doug, what do you think here in the doubleheader yesterday with the Rangers and the Angels? I mean, I think we were looking at run totals just 5 and 6. This is after I think they put up 15 on like Monday night.
Yeah, I don't mind I especially like the over. If you can still find Boston at 11 or the Red Sox game at 11.5, you basically have to grab it. It's up at 12 in most spots, though minus 113, so you might see it come down a little bit. I echo a lot of what he said too. It's Drew Smyly is just a home run machine. Porcellos thinks as well. The Red Sox mash lefties. The wind's blowing out. You pretty much, if you can find 11.5, you have to take it on the over there. I'd probably take the over on the Angels-Rangers game as well, though that one's a lot closer to me. The weather there is pretty advantageous, and that number is slightly above what the average runs in Texas this year. It's about 11.2 runs per game in Texas. So I'd probably take the over, but absolutely have to hammer 11.5 over in the Boston game.
All right, Brian, the rest of our panel feels the Phillies-Red Sox game is a pretty easy choice here between these two. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with them on this one. I respect Mike Minor as a pitcher to at least slow down the Halo offense. And you have Drew Smyly in Fenway Park and a great hitting environment tonight against a Red Sox team that just dominates left-handed pitching. You got J.D. Martinez, one of the best hitters in all of baseball, versus left-handed pitchers, Mookie Betts and company. And don't forget the Phillies are swinging a good bat. And you got Rick Porcello, who's given up 4 or 5 runs in 7 of his last 10 games. So there's a lot of offense coming your way in Fenway Park tonight. Stack it up.
All right, Patrick Corbin goes up against the Pirates, and his strikeout total is set at 6.5. Yu Darvish's K total is the same facing the Giants, but who is more likely to hit the over here, Doug?
Oh, you have to take Darvish. Darvish has been basically the best pitcher in baseball since the All-Star break. He's been absolutely ridiculous. He's got something like 28.5 to 2 Ks to walk ratio, 28.5 to 1 K to walk ratio since the All-Star break, 57 Ks in 42 innings. He probably just is the best pitcher in the second half of the season. This one is not particularly close for me on the over. I think you have to take it. He's been fantastic. I'd probably take the over on both, but would feel extremely confident in the over for the Darvish, just because of how good he's been lately. He's really just worked out all the control issues he was having early in the season.
Brian, you as high on Darvish here?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Darvish on this one. I was kind of surprised by only 6.5 here. The Pirates don't strike out a lot, and that's kind of what gets me staying off of Corbin. But Darvish, since the All-Star break, like Doug was saying there, he's had at least 6 Ks in all 7 of his starts, with 7 or more in the rest of those outings as well. The Giants are a young team. They're hitting better on the season against right-handed pitchers in the last couple of months, but they still strike out a ton as a very, very young offense. So Yu Darvish, he's just locked in right now and should feast on this offense. I wouldn't be shocked if he throws up 8, 9, maybe hits double digits tonight.
Steve, what do you think?
I mean, to be fair, both teams are hard to strike out. And then, I'd be kind of a fraud if I said I would rather Yu Darvish, since I wrote up this prop for Patrick Corbin in my MLB cheat sheets for today. So I like getting plus money on this prop here. Corbin's already faced the Pirates once already this season, struck out 11 when he faced them there. And then on the season, he's got a 28.5 K percentage. So it's not like the strikeout potential isn't there for Corbin. And let's not forget either, the Pirates are actually one of the worst offenses in all of baseball against left-handed pitching. So I think there's actually a lot more to like than, just what the naked eye sees here in this matchup here. So I'm going to take Corbin in this spot at the plus money. If he hits the prop, obviously you're getting a good return on your investment here. So I'm going to go with Corbin in this spot.
All right, guys, taking a gander at two underdog bets. The Angels plus 112 against the Rangers in Texas. Kind of talked about that already. While the Indians plus 130 against the Mets in New York. Who do you like to pull off the upset? This is when you take your pick, Bry Guy.
I'll take the Indians. A team that's contending for the AL Central crown. Going into New York, the offense is starting to get going here. Slowly but surely, Greg Allen's come out of nowhere. You have Carlos Santana having a career season. And not to mention Jose Ramirez, the summer of J-Ram, is alive and kicking. And you got Marcus Stroman, who is a great acquisition for the Mets. He's a big pitch-to-contact guy. And if you let an offense like the Indians get enough balls in play there, they're going to put up some runs. I like their chances at plus 130 to pick up the W over the Mets.
All right, Steven, which way are you leaning?
Yeah, I definitely feel with the Indians here. Like, let's not forget, one of the biggest things that we said about Stroman when he was traded to the Mets is that what a downgrade in the defense he's getting behind him. Stroman is a contact pitcher, like Brian just said. This defense is going to let him down at some point. And we've seen Stroman also struggle against lefties. Guess what? This Indians lineup is absolutely stockpiled with lefties or batters that can hit from the left side. He's going to see 6 of those guys in the lineup tonight. I mean, just 3 right up at the top. Yasiel Puig in the middle, and then some more after that. There's just a lot to like about the Indians in this matchup here. And then plus money again. Like, you're getting some really good odds here for the Indians in this matchup. And quite frankly, Stroman's been good, but this is one of those matchups that you could definitely see something fall the Indians' way. So I like the Indians a lot in this match.
Okay, Doug, it seems like the way to go here, especially with the way the Angels have struggled against the Rangers so far in this series.
I was going to say, I appreciate the sentiment. I'm mostly worried on the Indian side about Plutko has really struggled so much. The pitching matchup seems to be, there's such disparity between the two pitchers in that game. I'm not as bullish at that Indian number. I actually do like the Angels number. I kind of want to see if we're getting good money on what might be some run hot in terms of the two starting pitchers. And Minor, he's about a 1.5 higher on his xFIP this season. He's been good, so don't get me wrong. But he's definitely not a sub-3 ERA guy. Which the line might suggest that he is. And then Patrick Sandoval, he has struggled with the walks, but the Ks are there. His xFIP is actually a run lower than Minor's. The ERA's been bad because of some left on base and BABIP issues. So I think we're actually getting decent value on the Angels just because I do think the pitching matchup is closer than Vegas would suggest. And I'm pretty sure park adjusted offenses, the Angels are better this year than the Rangers. So I actually like the Angels side of this plus money.
Taking a look at a couple guys in good spots to hit a home run and have their team win. You can get Jorge Soler at plus 300 against Baltimore's Aaron Brook, whose ERA is 6.5. Or you can get JD Martinez at plus 350 against Philadelphia's Drew Smyly and his 7 ERA. Take your pick, Steve. I know we were talking about Smyly earlier here.
Oh, yeah, we love Drew Smyly.
Whew.
Yeah, I mean, this one is really close, honestly, but I'll take JD Martinez on the Red Sox with the slightly better odds here at plus 350. I mean, like I said, Drew Smyly struggles with the home run ball. Now he's at Fenway Park. The wind is blowing out here. And JD Martinez has absolutely annihilated pitching at home against lefties. He's got a 481 isolated power on the year at Fenway Park against lefties. Like, you absolutely have to love those numbers here. You think the Red Sox offense is just going to go ham on Smyly. Then they can get into that bullpen. It's been pretty much average all month long here. So I like the Red Sox side slightly better than the Royals, but I don't think you can go wrong at either one here.
Doug, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I'm on the JD Martinez Red Sox one for a lot of the same reasons. He just absolutely destroys. He's got video game numbers against lefties. It's kind of dumb. 455 ISO. You mentioned the ISO at home. He does it on the road as well. Fenway lets up the second most runs in the league, wind blowing out for all the reasons. JD Martinez against a lefty is almost as lock that you get in DFS. I know we're specifically talking about home runs, but the numbers he puts up in this platoon split are just completely ridiculous. So I'm all over the Martinez Boston side here as well.
Brian, seems like you'd be crazy not to go with Martinez here.
Yeah, I respect Jorge Soler when he's done this year. He's going to hit 40 home runs, and it's a great spot in Baltimore, but give me all the JD Martinez tonight. These guys hit most of the numbers already. You can throw in a 525 WOBA versus lefties. He has 14 home runs on the season versus lefties. That's a career high, and we're not even out of August yet. So everything lines up as a great spot for JD Martinez. As Doug said, you play him in DFS period against lefties in matchups like this. But when we're talking home runs and that monster in left, it's a great spot for JD Martinez tonight.
All right, we're going to need you guys for showdown picks coming up. We've got some NFL over-under player totals to discuss. Jessie, you're going to be catching up with Mike Brasso as well right after this.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We've had some time now to digest Baker Mayfield's comments about Daniel Jones, but he wasn't really talking about Daniel Jones. The Browns QB said Wednesday he texted the Giants' first-round pick to let him know his words in the GQ feature were taken out of context. Baker spoke with the press in Cleveland. It was along the lines of me talking about evaluating and college frustration of me not getting offers and saying that winning comes first if you're a quarterback, and I can actually understand the relation to that, and there's no question about it, which is why I felt like reaching out to Daniel. What Mayfield did stand by was the Giants taking the Duke QB 6th overall did blow his mind. At the same time, Baker said last year he couldn't believe the Browns took him number 1 overall. Jones took the high road. He said Baker's a great player, he can throw it, and he enjoys watching him play. Mayfield even said Jones was very nice, told him in a text, "No worries, man." Now, get this. Over on the DraftKings Sportsbook, there is an offer. Plus 2,500 for Daniel Jones to throw more touchdown passes than Baker Mayfield this season. Now, you can't bet against it. Oh, shucks. But if you believe Jones, A, will get a shot as the G-Men starting quarterback sooner rather than later, and B, can play, why not, as Baker Mayfield likes to say, feel dangerous?
Chugging along in the NFL preseason for just a little while longer, folks. In the meantime, how about NFL over-under with these guys? DK Live's Gary and Thorne, Jerry Donabedian from RotoWire, and Matthew Friedman of the Action Network.
So, are you taking the over or the under on these player totals? Pretty self-explanatory.
Fantastic.
Yes. Drew Lock suffering a thumb injury Monday, and reports are saying he's a no-go for week 1. So this is Joe Flacco's team. Woo! Here we go.
All right.
Flacco's touchdown total on DK Sportsbook, 17.5. You going over or going under that, Garion?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think we were worried about Drew Lock stealing this job early in the season. Probably more post the Week 10 bye. But, yeah, we know this is Flacco's job. Look, I don't like betting on Joe Flacco as a general rule of thumb, but I will take the over here, the slight over. It's just a volume thing. I don't think that Locke really is someone I'm worried about in terms of just impressing enough on a week-to-week basis when he does get back to being healthy to steal this job away. I guess I could see the Broncos being awful and then just them handing this job to Locke. But the 15 quarterbacks who threw at least 500 passes last season all reached 18 touchdown passes. It just seems like a pretty simple volume thing. And while the Broncos might not be as inclined to pass the ball as they were last season, they're probably not going to quite reach the run dependency that the Ravens were sitting at last year, around 52% pass rate for the Ravens, the third lowest rate in all of football. So I think he gets there. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I think he gets there.
Yeah, last time he got there, 2017, throwing 18 touchdowns with the Ravens. Jerry, which way do you lean on this?
Oh, well, I've got to go with the over. I mean, you know, for another 3-4 weeks, this guy's going to be considered the greatest quarterback in Ravens history. And as a Ravens fan. But in all seriousness, I mean, 23 quarterbacks each of the last 3 years hit it. So, yeah, it's just a matter of will he keep the job? And I think he's kind of at that point. As I've seen as a Ravens fan, he's just barely good enough to keep the job. Certainly when your other options are as poor as Denver's. And yeah, I don't know if the Lock injury really matters because he's going to be healed before any point where he would have been a candidate for work. But just looking at, how we view these guys as prospects, I think Lock was a reach in the second round. Hogan was never much of a prospect. And they've been terrible in the preseason. Between the two of them, they've thrown like 80 passes for 350 yards. Thrown 2 picks, 11 sacks, like 4.5 yards per attempt. So, Joe Flacco is, probably the 30th best quarterback in the NFL, but I think that puts him a good amount ahead of Locke and Hogan. And the defense and the offensive line are strong enough to keep the Broncos, probably not a playoff team, but at least competitive enough to where maybe they enter December with some playoff hope and keep Flacco in the lineup.
All right, Matthew, 17.5 passing touchdowns for Joe Flacco. New home there out in the Mile High. You want to go over that or you want to take the under?
Yeah, I completely agree with these guys. We have it projected at Action Network around 18, so it's not as if I'm hammering this. I think that line of 17.5 is actually pretty close. But we are projecting Joe Flacco to play the majority of the games. I think anywhere from 13 to 16 of the games. Drew Lock might get 1 to 2 starts, but I think Flacco is going over this if he had to lean one way.
Alrighty, from Flacco's new team to his old one, the Baltimore Ravens, their quarterback Lamar Jackson has a rushing yards total set at 825.5. Over or under that mark here, Jerry? I mean, he rushed for 695 yards last season.
Well, full disclosure here.
Yeah, we heard you. We heard you the first time. I heard you in the last block.
Big, yeah.
Hey, I love the kid.
Yeah,
the pride of Boynton Beach High School.
Again, you're kind of forcing me to say over. Maybe, I think this one is more to me maybe of a stay away if I'm really just, looking at it from what's a smart bet. But if I had to take one, I'm going to say over. Only 5 quarterbacks have ever reached this number, but 2 of those were Mike Vick, and that's really the only realistic NFL comparison we have for Lamar Jackson. We've seen Cam Newton go over 700 3 times, and certainly Lamar Jackson's going to be running more than Newton has. Looking at just Jackson's last 8 starts last year, his 8 starts, including the playoffs, he averaged 76 rushing yards, and he's not gonna be up at 16, 17 carries per game again. But he can afford to lose some of the yards, and if his yards per carry, which was around 4.8, goes up into that 5.5 range, then he only needs 10 carries per game, and even can have a missed game built in there and still get there. So yeah, I would probably put him somewhere around 850 to 900, but certainly the potential for 1,000 if he stays healthy.
Yeah, stays healthy though. Matthew, are you a little concerned at all that his heavy rushing style leads to more injuries, perhaps?
No, he's actually been pretty sharp at being able to avoid hard contact, even though he's a primarily rushing quarterback. So we're projecting him for the over. You always feel a little hesitant to project a guy for something that seems like, an outlier type of statistic, because hitting that number would be pretty remarkable for a quarterback. But this is the type of thing that Lamar Jackson does. He is a very good runner. So I would take the over here.
Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the natural inclination might be to worry about the injuries with a number this high, but sort of like Jerry referred to, we've only seen 5 quarterbacks in NFL history do this, but I think the archetype of quarterback has changed drastically, if we're talking the decade following the merger and things of that nature. Russell Wilson did this in 2014. I don't think it's that crazy a concept that he could do this. And we did kind of have differing reports early out of camp. I know Lamar Jackson said himself that he was not going to be running the ball as much this season as we saw him do last year. But, Harbaugh, when asked about Cam Newton's 139 career high carries, was very quick to say he'd take the over on that number. And I'm more inclined to lean with the coach than the player on this one. Especially still believing when push comes to shove, Lamar Jackson will end up running the football. So, yeah, let's just take the over here. It's the more fun direction to go anyway.
Okay, we got a tough one here. David Johnson had a down year, but there's a lot of hype about him and Cliff Kingsbury's new offense. Got Kyler Murray now as your quarterback. He's got a rushing and receiving yards total set at 1,600.5. So, Matthew, you taking the over or under here? It sounds like we're all kind of expecting him to return to that 2016 form.
Yeah, 2016, he had over 2,000 scrimmage yards. So that would be pretty aggressive here, but I think he still has that type of playmaking potential. And the one thing I really like about Cliff Kingsbury's offense is that it's fast-paced, and even though it is pass-heavy, that is something that plays into David Johnson's skill set. And when Cliff Kingsbury was at Texas Tech, when he had good pass catching backs, he didn't hesitate in getting them the ball. So I think whether it's on the ground or through the air, David Johnson is going to have a bounce back year. And it's not as if he was bad last year either. He had, 1,300, 1,400 scrimmage yards as it was. So I think David Johnson will go over. I'm projecting him for closer to 1,700 scrimmage yards. So I do like the over here.
All right, at the very least here, Gary, we expect vast improvement from this guy from last season.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key is, we can talk about what a disappointment he was last season, but that disappointing season was still one of the few remaining bell cow backs we have. and 1,400 or almost 1,400 scrimmage yards. We're not really asking him to do all that much more. And I think the pace of the Kingsbury offense is crucial because it was 1,400 yards. And as much as you would maybe want to blame David Johnson, he was really just a product of his environment. We're talking about a guy who was on a team that ranked dead last in drive success rate, dead last in plays per drive, dead last in time of possession per drive, dead last in yardage per drive. So even just the slightest bit of regression to the positive sense would say that a guy like David Johnson is going to get to 1,600. So I'm pretty bullish on the over here.
All right, Jerry, this is the first guy in this segment who doesn't have a connection to the Baltimore Ravens. So what do you think here, buddy? David Johnson, north or south of 1,600 and a half rushing and receiving yards?
Well, I'd like to see him play for the Ravens someday. I actually think this is kind of with the Jackson number. My instinct was, wow, that's really high. Like, then I thought about it more and was like, okay, I think it makes sense that he'd go over. With this one, I was like, 100 yards per game, David Johnson, that's nothing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. They're running 65, 70 snaps per game. But kind of just thinking about it a little more and looking through the past few years, it's basically been 3 or 4 guys per year that have reached that number of 1,600. Largely just because at running back, even a guy like David Johnson, who's played 16 games, 3 or 4 seasons, and we saw it 2 years ago, there's just such a high risk of catastrophic injury. Like pretty much just like 1 out of every 4 running back seasons just gets, totally wiped out or at least half wiped out in a way that just there won't be enough games for him to put up that number of yards. So I think once I build in that like risk of an ACL or Achilles type injury, certainly I think he'll hit this number if he plays 16 games. I'd put him over 100 yards per game, no doubt. But once I build that in and consider the possibility that he misses it also because of a poor offensive line, I think it's just a little less than 50% that he would hit that number.
All right, good stuff, guys. We'll have you back in a bit to look at future odds, but right now, my conversation with Mike Brasso. So you called yourself the Clubhouse DJ. Which song turns the Rays clubhouse into the club and gets everybody hyped up?
Yeah, I don't think I've kind of necessarily played in that role yet up here. It's kind of been like a more minor league thing. Don't worry, I'm trying to work my way into that role. I think our clubhouse guys, they do a really good job on the DJ, actually, and I'm not going to take anything away from them. If they end up one day asking me to step in for a day and kind of see what I have, I'm not going to turn it down.
You wouldn't turn that down, of course.
Yeah, but I can't consider myself a club DJ up here. It's not earned, it's not deserved yet, but maybe one day.
Okay, well, how did you pick your walk-up music?
I'm just a big like '90s hip hop guy. I like Biggie. I think you can't go wrong with that choice selection. So I didn't really have too much time to think about it when they asked me what I wanted my walkout song to be. So it was kind of just an easy choice. Just went through my Biggie playlist and found one that worked for me.
Well, since we know what your superlative would be, let's give out some others for your teammates. Who's the best car guy?
The best what guy? I'm sorry.
Best car guy. Who's got the best car?
Ooh, there's a lot of trucks on our team. And I love trucks. I wish I had one. The best, man, I like Avi's car. He's got a Rover. I'm gonna go with Avi.
All right, what about best sense of style?
Best sense of style. That's a tough one. Tommy Pham's got good style.
Okay, best sense of humor?
And this is excluding me.
Well, if you think you have the best sense of humor, you got to go and take that title for yourself.
No, best sense of humor. I'm going to go me. I have a different sense of humor, and people are starting to catch on a little bit better lately.
There you go. Sneak it in there with the good humor. I like it. What about most superstitious? Does somebody have, like, weird pregame rituals they always have to do?
Weird pregame rituals. I haven't seen anything too out of the ordinary, actually. It might just be because people are trying to hide it if someone does something really weird. I I got nothing for you on that one. I don't think there's too many superstitions on this team.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, well, this weekend is Players Weekend, where all the players get to wear their nicknames on their jerseys. You're going with Frenchie. Has that always been your nickname?
No, it hasn't. It kind of got started in this spring training, actually. I don't know if that was because people couldn't pronounce my last name, but they knew it was French type thing. I think it kind of worked with Ozzie Timmons, our first base coach. I don't know. I'll have to actually ask him. I don't think he could pronounce my last name, so he just called me Frenchie. And I think that kind of snowballed from there.
That's hysterical. You sounded like you're like, yeah, no, maybe not what you would have chosen for yourself.
No, it kind of got thrown on me. And, being the first year guy in big league camp, I was kind of, what are you going to say? No?
Yeah, you just went with it. Okay, well, which of your teammates do you think has the best nickname?
Best nickname? Charlie Morton's similar is CFM, which is pretty cool. AK Kiermaier is the outlaw.
There you go.
That's pretty spot on right there.
That's a pretty good one. Well, we are DraftKings, so we have to ask, do you play any fantasy sports?
You know what? I wish I did more than I actually do, unfortunately. I don't really the short answer is no, and I don't really do much fantasy sports, unfortunately.
Maybe this year you'll be in a football league. Who knows? All right. Well, Mike Brasso, thank you so much for making time for DraftKings.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
I'm Brendan Glasheen, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Jerry Jones got jokes. Zeke who? Remember that from the weekend? Ezekiel Elliott and his agent thought the joke was disrespectful, and Jones hasn't spoken to the running back since his knee slapper. Even though the Cowboys made a new headline by inking linebacker Jalen Smith to a whopping 7-year extension, Jones knew questions were coming about how he hurt Zeke's feelings. I've earned the right with Zeke to joke, period. I've earned it. But he said that after saying the team takes precedent. America's team made a real move. That's what he wanted to talk about. Jerry made sure to fire back at Zeke's camp. He couldn't help himself, and Jones tossed even more shade towards Elliott by complimenting Jalen Smith. Smith's never complained, never missed a workout, never quit. Man, the Cowboys and Elliott don't appear to be close. Dallas being Zekeless for Week 1 against the Giants, becoming more and more real.
Okay, this is my read. Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich. Yeah, that is my read. Reed Fowler. The golf gurus are here to talk about the Tour Championship. Great start to the segment. A bittersweet PGA. What are the odds here, guys?
Keep it together, please. We have
I'm sorry,
a half an hour.
I'm reading about some crazy stuff on the internet.
Stop. Different kind of format here with guys starting based on where they rank in the FedEx Cup standings. But you can bet on the winner without starting strokes. So, Reed, you wrote about how John Rahm is your favorite bet at plus 1,100. Please tell us why.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what Emerson was doing. He was probably posting something on his dog's Instagram account and then reposting it on his own account. So
actually, I'm not kidding you. Something popped across my timeline about a peanut butter, a peanut butter
John
and pickle
Rahm, look,
sandwich.
when you take the strokes out or the points out of the FedEx Cup standings, you just look at John Rahm. There's a few guys, Patrick Cantlay, Roy McIlroy, who are playing the best golf of their careers in this season. Matt Kuchar, you can kind of, at the beginning of the season, was playing extremely well. But John Rahm, this guy has top 5s, top 10s across his entire career. But even in this season, right, international as well as domestic, and just again in the playoffs, he hasn't finished outside the top 5. He's top 10, I believe, in strokes gained putting on Bermuda over the last 12 rounds. And in terms of birdie or better gained, again in the playoffs, again he is elite. So when you take those points out and you look at the guys that can really score at their ceilings or just a little bit above average, John Rahm is that guy at plus 1,100.
So, Jeff, do you agree or disagree with that pick?
No, it's terrible. No,
Thank you.
Look, I mean, this is kind of a brand new format we're getting. In a lot of ways, we don't really know what to expect, just because we're not sure. Like, are the guys are 4 shots back? Are they just going to play loose and free and catch up in one round, or is Justin Thomas going to take off? I mean, there's a bit of an unknown factor, and for that reason, I'd rather just go with the guys at value. So, Webb Simpson starting at the same number as John Rahm, he's much better odds. I mean, now, we've got him up there, so plus 1,400. even a guy like Xander Schauffele, you're going to get him at bigger odds. Patrick Reed is actually starting 2 shots in front of Rahm, is at much bigger odds. So for me, I understand going to Rahm. I mean, he's been absolutely insane. I had 12 top 10s on the year. It's just coming in, I mean, on a stretch of top 10s, basically. I don't even remember last time the guy had a bad tournament. But for me, I'm just looking at value for this tournament if I want to go betting. And I think Patrick Reed is a much better value starting at 200, 2 shots in front of Rahm. Let's not forget, he's outperformed Rahm in the playoffs with the wins. So for me, I don't love the Rahm bet just because of the odds, but I definitely understand it if you really like what you see from him.
Jeff, you just mentioned Patrick Reed, but Rory's odds to overtake Justin Thomas and win are plus 950. But yeah, your boy, Patrick Reed, starting 1 stroke in front of Rory, and his odds are plus 1700. So do you agree with these?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I don't. I mean, I just don't understand what Patrick Reed has done to be double in odds for Rory McIlroy. And I say that as I like this for Patrick Reed if you're thinking about betting him this week. I mean, they tied last week, and then the week before, Reed won the event and outscored Rory. So he's coming in. I mean, he's outperformed Rory in the first 2 playoff events. We've seen multiple playoff winners in past years. Billy Horschel won 2 events in a row and won the Tour Championship. A couple other players like Jason Day, Bryson DeChambeau. So this is a thing. I mean, players get hot in the playoffs, and a guy like Patrick Reed coming in here a few shots back probably knows he's getting disrespected in the odds this week. I don't have a problem going to Patrick Reed. I think it's a little bit insane his price this week comparative to the other players anyway.
Only thing is here, Reed, 6 consecutive appearances at the Tour Championship and still chasing his first top 10.
Yeah, but in those 6, he has, pretty good. I'm talking about Rory, right? He has pretty good.
Oh, I was talking. That was Reed. That was
okay.
Reed.
Well,
Yeah,
even going back to Reed, look, Jeff's right. Like the value of what you're getting for Patrick Reed, who won recently, closer to what we're playing at this week than Rory. Of course, you look at that number and you say that's crazy. But at the same time, look at these two just in a vacuum, right? I mean, Rory, he's starting at behind 2 shots or a shot behind Patrick Reed. And this guy has impeccable form at this course, not only form at this course, but in the entire season. I mean, outside, I think, of the 16 tournaments on the PGA Tour that he's played, he's only finished outside the top 10 4 times. I know there's a couple of miscuts, but in the 2 wins that he has at the Players and at RBC Canadian, this guy gained almost 40 strokes total on the field. So his ceiling is completely high. In the court of public opinion, when you look at Rory, of course he's going to be down here because everyone thinks that when you get to East Lake, when you get to the playoffs, and when you get Rory at even 65% of his best game, that's going to be better than a Patrick Reed. On Donald Ross courses, Rory has played a lot better than Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is 25th in ball striking on Donald Ross courses. And so even when you look at all the statistics, I get the value is there, but Rory is just in a smash spot.
All right, of the guys who are starting at even par, whose odds do you like to break the top 10, Reed? Number of people to choose from here.
Yeah, I'm going to leave Usti there for Jeff, so I won't talk about him. But a couple of guys, I mean, Lucas Glover, when you talk about a guy who's been playing well of recent, he's one of them. Ches Reavie, if you read Jeff's article, and he made a good point. I took 2 minutes to read it. He made a really good point about the past winners here. And a guy who's at even par, at Ches Reavie, he's won once, right? And he has a couple of top 5s this season. And when you look at, and tough courses too, that he's got these top 5s at, when you look at where his value is at and his ability to keep it in the fairway and play on these tough courses in these tough conditions, I think Ches Reavie is a really interesting spot, even for DraftKings from a DK standpoint. I really like Ches Reavie.
Jeff, go ahead and make your point for Oosthuizen.
Well, I mean, look, in all seriousness, I mean, Louis coming in playing, like, his ball striking wise, he's in the best form of the season. I mean, he was 2nd strokes gain approach in the first playoff event, 4th last week. He actually started to putt better last week, too. Now, doesn't mean it's necessarily just going to carry over, but he has been trending. I mean, ever since the Open Championship, he's put in his best stretch of ball striking. So I think if you're getting him grouped with these other players, he's probably the best player in this group. Obviously, Bryson, you're getting a little bit worse price on this week for a top 10. I don't mind the Ches idea either. I think there's some merit to that. I think I would probably lean Kokrak over Ches Reavie. I think in this spot for Kokrak, who got in as the 30th player, he's been really good this year. I mean, this is like a top 10 player in strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approaches, and he's just playing with house money. I mean, until JT Poston bogeyed the last hole last week, Kokrak was on the outside looking in. So this is a player who can make a lot of birdies. He's very aggressive off the tee. He can make eagles on the par 5. He's going to be playing with house money. He's probably going to come out and just play really loose the first round, and if he puts in a low round, he can make up a lot of strokes. So I think Usti and Kokrak for me would be the two guys I'd look at.
And he gets his first invite to Augusta next year, the top 30 in the FedEx Cup standings. That was huge for him, too. So JT posting bogey. Kokrak's loving that.
Jeff, did you see the video of Brooks Koepka today saying that if they pulled a regular Joe out of the stands at Eastlake, he would spot him 75 strokes? Could you beat Brooks Koepka in 4 rounds with a 75-stroke cushion?
Well, of course I could.
Okay.
Oh, please cut that and show it to Brooks. You see what happens when you go on Brooks.
I mean, I've actually been thinking about this all day, Emerson. I think the line for me would be between like 110 and 120.
Yeah, that's what Reed and I were discussing. What did we say, Reed?
Like a PGA Tour setup, I suck. Like my back is sore. Like I don't even know if I could play 4 rounds in 4 days, to be honest. But like I think that would be the line for me.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm 80.
Emerson said without a chance he's beating Brooks.
Yep, that's true, dude. I hit it 330 down the pipe, and I roll a fantastic meatball now that I fixed my putting stroke. We got to go. Goodbye, golf gurus. Appreciate you. Football's next, but first, here's Pat Mayo.
I want to talk about Antonio Brown. He was back at practice on Tuesday. He's still going to file a grievance with the NFL on Friday. That's when it's going to be heard. What do we do with him? Because it feels like he's either going to be a wasted pick or he is the pick that wins you fantasy leagues. And I can't quite decide which side I want to land on because I'm being a coward with my ranking right now.
Initially, I was okay still taking him in the second round where I was taking him a month ago. I've been doing second round this entire offseason because, as you know, we talked about it, I haven't projected for the most targets in the league. And so I don't even care that it's Derek Carr. People forget that Derek Carr helped Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree both be top 15 wide receivers in the same season a couple seasons ago. So I was there. I don't think I could do that now, mostly because the grievance is happening on Friday. There's still another one. Yes, he was at practice today, but before this last go-around, he was supposedly fine and posted on Instagram, happy to be back with the team. And then they had the preseason game, and he was on the sidelines and all that type of stuff. It just, I'm done with it at this point until he maybe reaches round 4. Round 4, I think I can invest there as long as I also haven't drafted Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, or somebody among that kind of risk. Round 4 feels appropriate.
So would you play, this is where I have it right now, because I had initially bumped him down from tier 2 to tier 3 in the wide receiver rankings. And again, you can go check out all of these in the description or up on dkplaybook.com. Hit up my Facebook page. The entire draft kit is up there. So I'm looking at it right now. I had Antonio Brown at number 20. I dropped him to number 22, and I moved Mike Evans one spot ahead of him. But when I look at my rankings at receiver, like I have Keenan Allen, he's looks like he might play week 1. T.Y. Hilton, I don't know the status of Andrew Luck. I love Julian Edelman, but I just don't think you need to take him as highly. So I think that like back end of the second round, early third is where I still want to target Antonio Brown. I think that is very acceptable risk I'm still half convinced he's getting points off Hard Knocks and he's just fabricating this drama for ratings.
And that's what I want to believe, and that's what I've been saying this entire time. But at the same point, I think the problem is why I'm not thinking until the early round 4 is because what you said. This is a potentially wasted pick.
But it could be a league-winning pick too, and you're not going to get a discount on this quality of player very often. And if you're okay with burning your back-end second-round pick, then if you're not okay with that, then you don't take him. I think that's pretty clear. It's sort of like Todd Gurley in a way, yet I think that Brown is safer than Todd Gurley.
At this point, I don't think he is. We have the video of him saying, look, I'll happily sit out football, be done with football, and retire and pick up and everything. The dude's whacked out of his mind. Like, let's be realistic about this and understand that the Steelers were certainly justified in moving on from them for what was basically a bag of chips. And the Steelers are looking like, hey, you guys made the right call, because I would love to say you're right, but I don't think I can. And it's going to come down to everybody's decision. If you want to be like you're saying the end of the second round, early third round, I'm not going to say you're wrong to do so. I'm just at this point now, as somebody who was Team Antonio Brown this entire time, I'm just not doing it at this point just because you're right. It can be a league-winning pick, but look at last year's third and fourth round. There was other league-winning picks that weren't named Antonio Brown. It doesn't have to be Antonio Brown. Now, granted, you're right. And Antonio Brown, if he plays 16 games, we know who Antonio Brown is. But at the same time, there are people in the third and fourth round who can win your league if everything cracks right for them.
If you're in the mood for football, do not worry. You are not alone. I as well am looking forward to football. And we're here to help.
Breaking news.
DK Live's Gary and Thorne. Jerry.
Oh my God, Donovan!
And from RotoWire, Matthew Friedman of the Action Network.
It's like a mental thing now, Jerry. Like, he says your name so many times during the day when we're at our desks.
And not enough vowels in that name for me. It's too many
I'm
consonants.
pretty sure I've heard it correctly twice.
Yeah, no, I've nailed it. I just didn't want to not nail it. I didn't want to not nail it.
So hard. He looked at me and he was like, so
Say
I
it!
said it. All right.
Say it, damn it.
I'm so sorry. It's NFL for better or worse. Looking at future odds for a few awards that'll eventually be handed out. So starting with Andrew Luck.
Oh,
who,
man.
His name should be Andrew, not Luck. It's just
yeah,
Andrew Misfortune is dealing with an injury. He's not even practicing and likely not going to play in the preseason. The Colts quarterback is plus 900 to win the MVP this year, behind only Patrick Mahomes at plus 600. Should his odds be better or worse, Garion?
I think they have to be worse. I mean, it almost seems a little too simple. But look, 2 months ago, when he at least had presumed health, he was 10-1. And now he's 9-1, and we don't know if he's going to play week 1. So it already seems like these are moving in an odd direction. And I understand that Luck was a very, very popular MVP pick. I enjoyed him as an MVP pick 2 months ago. It's a really good situation in a high-paced, high-scoring, high-volume offense with the Indianapolis Colts. But I just don't see how you can like it more now than you did when he at least seemed healthy 2 months ago. So I just can't get behind this.
Matt, just like more leg injuries here for Luck. Do you agree with Gary? And it's kind of crazy that when we thought he was healthy, the odds were worse than they are now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this should be closer to 1,500. I mean, that's where the Colts are right now to win the Super Bowl. And if they are a Super Bowl contending team, I think that is what it would take for Luck to win the MVP. I think his odds should be much closer to that number, maybe plus 1,200, but where it is now, plus 900, just seems way out of line.
Yeah, Jerry, you agree with these guys? Just got to be worse.
Yeah, totally on board. I think some of it staying in the same range is just the fact that it's kind of a narrative-driven award. So at the same time, whereas his odds of putting up a big season go down, it's almost like the bar for what he needs to do statistically also goes down. Like the media will be more drawn to him, but I still just think like 1,500 is the right range here. Mahomes is, I think, a much stronger pick with odds that aren't that much different. And just looking at the quality of quarterback around the league right now and most of the other guys being healthy, there's just so many other candidates to do it.
All right, well, they've told us it's Eagles Day on the DraftKings Sportsbook. So let's take a look at Carson Wentz, shall we? He's plus 700 to win Comeback Player of the Year. Thinking his odds will be better or worse, Matthew?
I think it's a little bit weird that he's eligible for Comeback Player of the Year because that really is a narrative-driven award. But then there also has to be, significant absence. And you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Le'Veon Bell, both of whom I think would be excellent candidates for this. I think people, even if Wentz has a good season, they're not going to think of him as a comeback player because I don't think he missed enough time. I think they would just think of him as someone in the MVP conversation. So I'm way off of this number.
Okay, you way off of it as well, Jerry. Matthew made a good point. Bell, Garoppolo. I mean, hell, you can even throw Devontae Freeman in that conversation. Maybe Darius Geis.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the same thing. I love Wentz this year. I think he's going to have a huge year, and I think he'll be in the MVP conversation, at least at the back end of it. But he played 11 games last year, completed 70% of his passes, and looking back at the guys who won this award, and I did have to look back because it's not really something I paid attention to a lot over the years, it was pretty much always guys who played like 1 or 2 games at most or missed the whole season with like an ACL or Eric Berry when he had cancer. And I just think like Garoppolo is a candidate. If Josh Gordon does like anything, even though he did play a good amount of last season, I think it's a narrative-driven award. Gordon's the fun guy to give it to. This could be a year where we see like Leonard Fournette, Devonta Freeman. I just think Wentz won't get much consideration for the award. So I just think, even if you could make the argument, it just won't happen.
Oh man, Gary, and I totally forgot Jason Witten too.
Oh God. Look, that's a great narrative. I guess there's that aspect.
Yeah.
And does he get extra points for not being on Monday Night Football anymore? Because that does improve everyone's life.
Absolutely. I'm giving him all the points for that.
So look, I'm going to basically echo what these guys were saying. You go through the last couple seasons, Luck didn't play a snap in 2017. Keenan Allen played a quarter in 2016. Jordy Nelson didn't play a single snap in 2015, and then you've got Eric Berry, obviously. Although I think the Berry thing is kind of interesting when we look at the top of the odds here. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is justifiably the odds-on favorite here to take down this award, his first preseason performance notwithstanding. But there is no way Le'Veon Bell is winning this award. Like, it's a media-voted award. Can you imagine giving this award to somebody like Eric Berry 4 years ago and then handing it to Le'Veon Bell? Look, I'm on the guy's side, but he's not winning any friends with the NFL media. So, no, there's no way Carson Wentz wins this award. He played too much last season. Hunter Henry at 20-1 is kind of a fun name. That's
a good one. That's a real good one. I didn't think about that.
Okay, this next one we got to get through kind of quickly. So tough for a running back to win the MVP, but the Offensive Player of the Year has been won 3 times in the last 7 years. Saquon Barkley has the best odds of any back to win the award at plus 2,500. Should those odds be better or worse, Jerry?
You said quick here, so I've been alluding to it, but there's just a bunch of big QB seasons coming. And I think it's a media voted thing. In the past, they haven't really cared about catching 80 passes or 2,000 scrimmage yards. If it's been a running back, it's been 20 plus touchdowns or like a 1,900 plus rushing yard type thing. So the well-rounded stat line doesn't really play. Like, there's just too many big QB seasons coming. I just don't see really very, very slim chance for Barkley to do this.
What do you think, Arian?
Yeah, you'd think Offensive Player of the Year doesn't quite have the same voting tendencies as MVP and some of those weird idiosyncrasies, but I went through it. Not a single person has won this award on a team that didn't finish 500 or better. So if you like Barkley for this award, you're thinking that the Giants are going to go at least 8-8, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't like the odds here at all.
Matthew, what do you think?
100% agree with what was just said. The running backs who have won this award have historically been on teams that have surprised, teams that kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't see that happening for the Giants this year.
Love it. Thank you, gentlemen. One more block to go, helping you guys out with MLB Showdown picks right after this reason to believe in the future of the Orioles. What's up, guys? Emerson Lotzia back here inside the DraftKings studio. Right now, we're going to take you inside the School of Rock with Rock Kabako, Orioles writer for the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. I'm told there's no detention in the School of Rock, according to your Twitter bio.
A few people have been expelled, but that's only if they cross certain lines.
I know way too much about detention back in my day. Right now, though, man, obviously it's been a tough season for Baltimore, but this team does have some promising young players in the clubhouse. John Means is one of them here. What have you seen from him that kind of makes you think he's the future leader of this pitching staff?
He worked really hard in the offseason to improve velocity. He added some velo on the fastball, more than what we saw when he came up for one appearance in September. He's got a plus changeup all of a sudden, a couple breaking balls. He showed up at camp figuring he had no shot to make the team, let alone what we were thinking. And he was kind of a surprise guy that made it. It's a bullpen guy, and all of a sudden, he's arguably their best starter. So, that was a shocking development. Whether he's a number one moving forward, I don't know. A lot of that's going to depend on that wave of young arms they hope are coming up. Some former first-round picks, Grayson Rodriguez, D.L. Hall, another kid, Michael Baumann, threw a no-hitter in Double-A and then just threw a shutout. And Dean Kramer, they got in the Manny Machado trade with the Dodgers. He's moved up to Triple-A. So in this perfect world, John would actually get pushed down in the rotation because of these guys. And if that happens, that's where you're stacked. You're hoping you have a kid who's this good who may be more in the back end of the rotation. But he is legit. And he's got great composure. I don't think this is one of those flukish things where he's not going to be able to maintain this.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a good problem to have if you're the Orioles, to be honest.
Right. It's it all starts with starting pitching, and if they get enough of it, including a John Means, it also opens the door to make some deals, which we see a lot of teams do, like the Yankees, the Rays have done that. You draft and develop your pitchers, and then if there's a deal out there to be made, you get a return for some of those arms.
Yeah, and on offense, Trey Mancini is another guy having a great year. The best of his career. Does he have what it takes to become the face of the franchise?
He does if the franchise keeps him. That's one of the more intriguing storylines. Teams kind of were checking to see if he was available at the deadline, and they learned that basically no one's untouchable here. It's a rebuild, but he was kind of off the table there. It was going to take a huge offer, but I think they'll revisit that in the offseason. If you can get quite a bit for Trey Mancini and you are a rebuilding club, you have to consider it. And also, by the time they're supposed to be contending, whatever the timetable is, he could be approaching free agency. And he's not really a kid at this point. So I think they're going to at least explore options if there are teams that come calling again. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, they're definitely reluctant to part with him because he is their best hitter. He has become kind of the face of this franchise. The leader in the clubhouse, which for, a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, that tells you what's going on here. Guys are asking him what they should do with their 401ks. It's not like he's a grizzled veteran. He's taking those questions. A media favorite. He is a stand-up guy, always his locker, always available to speak. So, the club sees all that. But I don't think they're in a position now where they're going to go ahead and start negotiating a long-term extension because you just don't spend that kind of money when you're in this rebuild process. So, he has a chance to be that guy that you're asking about, but that is if they hold on to him.
What up? Brendan Glasheen here, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Health is crucial in sports. Most teams that are in it at the end tend to be close to completely healthy. We've got a unique situation, though, in baseball, specifically in the American League. You see, the Astros just placed shortstop Carlos Correa and right-handed pitcher Aaron Sanchez on the IL. It's back discomfort for Correa, the same dude who missed 2 months earlier this season with a fractured rib. And our pal, Houston manager A.J. Hinch, said he pulled Sanchez from Tuesday's start because he didn't look himself and there was a little decline in his velocity. These are simply precautionary moves. The Astros know they are still loaded enough to make it through these final 35 games of the year seamlessly. And so do their biggest competitors, the Yankees. They're still missing Voit, Stanton, Encarnacion, Betanzas, Severino, Hicks, a bunch of relievers. Most of these names are expected to return at the end of August or at some point in September. The Stros are only 2 back of the Bombers for the best record in the AL, but Houston don't care. As banged up as both squads are, they realize they're in a health race, not a pennant race, at least for right now. In all likelihood, it's Houston or New York going to the World Series representing the American League. Health is the #1 priority.
Okay, boys and girls, we have Major League Baseball showdown picks to get to. And Steve Buchanan of DK Live and Mr. Doug Norrie, proud owner of DFSR.com, here to help us out. It's the Brewers at the Cardinals, Mrs. Coffield.
Miss Coffield, thank you.
Miss Coffield. Soon, maybe going to be engaged here soon?
Oh, can you?
All right, focus.
Are you
focus,
serious?
Focus.
God, I hope no one I know is watching. All right, Steve, do you need to have Yelich tonight? He's going to cost you 16-2 to captain or 10-8 as a flex.
Oh, I can't wait for the argument that's going to come post-show in about 8 minutes. That's going to be awesome. I don't think Yelich is actually necessary tonight. I mean, like you look at the pitcher, you look at the pitchers going in this game, and like Wainwright, not a sexy name. Adrian Hauser, not a sexy name, but both guys have been pretty good on the mound, especially Wainwright at home against lefties as well. He's got an overall 292 WOBA, 3.76 xFIP at Busch Stadium this season. So I feel like paying up for Yelich isn't really all that necessary. If anything, I probably want to roster both pitchers tonight. So I think trying to reach for Yelich and getting these pitchers in almost nearly impossible. So I think Yelich is a no for me tonight.
Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to ever call a hitter a must in these formats just because of the variance around how they score. There's just so much more inconsistent, like you said, than the pitchers. Yelich is actually even a little bit more inconsistent relative to the top scorers in the game. His coefficient of variation is about 10% higher than the Trouts and the Acunas and Bellingers of the world. So calling a hitter a must, he's amazing. So it's not anything against that. It's just that if you're going to pay top dollar for a position that isn't necessarily locked into scoring you points or has so much variance around it, it's a tough sell to me. Huge upside, obviously, but definitely not a must for me.
So, Doug, which pitcher are you taking tonight? Or maybe you're not interested in them?
No, I mirrored that thought from before. I would roster both of them here. This is a pretty low run line, all things considered. It's a pick 'em. Both teams coming in around 4.5 implied runs. Hauser has some K stuff. They shuttled him between the bullpen and the starting rotation. So, but he's been decent as a starter. xFIP a little lower than the ERA. Wainwright has actually dialed up the Ks a little bit more over the last couple years, so that's been nice to see. So I'm actually making it a priority to try to roster both of these guys over some of the hitters for sure.
Steve, what are the chances you're taking one of them, both of them, or neither one?
I think you got to do at least Wainwright. The only problem is, and like, I don't mind taking both pitchers here, but there's really little to no value on this slate. And I think that's where I think it gets really difficult to make the lineup. So if I'm choosing just one of them, I think it's going to end up being Wainwright. He's got a better K upside than I think Hauser does here. The Brewers have one of the highest K percentages in the league against right-handed bats at 24.3% here. And like I said, he's been so much better at Busch Stadium than he has been on the road. And I don't think that's really talked about enough. You know, Busch Stadium is a much better pitcher's park than it is a hitter's park here. So I'm definitely going to take Wainwright here, but it's really close between the two. I don't think you can go wrong on either side here.
All right, what about who you're going to captain, Steve? Remember, 1.5 times the salary, 1.5 times the points.
So I don't know if you've heard me talk about Wainwright in this start, but I think he's a really good spot here for captain as well here. Obviously, with the captain spot, you want to try to get as much points as possible because you get 1.5 the amount of fantasy points here. So getting Wainwright here with the K potential, with the potential good start here in front of him, I think that's the way to captain here. The only thing with hitters here is that there's just no guarantee you're going to get really anything out of any of them here. So at least with a pitcher, at least you hope you're going to get some type of performance out of him here. So just going to keep rolling with Wainwright here.
Doug, who are you going to take as your captain?
You know, I was going to say either one of the pitchers, but just to pivot, just to give another guy. There are some weather concerns in this game, by the way. So I don't think the pitchers are at huge risk of an in-game delay, but that always worries me a little bit when there's rain in the forecast. That being said, they're probably safe to roster. If I was going to go captain bat, just to give a different name, I could throw Yasmani Grandal out there. He's going to hit in front of Yelich, which always has a lot of upside. He had the plate appearance expectation is nice, sitting in the second hole there. He gets on base a lot, 16% walk rate. There's some pop in the bat with 20 home runs. The OPS is a little lower than you'd think it would be considering the power and the walk rate. But hitting in front of Yelich, shooting for some upside with the power, I'll go Grandal there. But I do like I have to say that I do like both the pitchers.
Doug, good point on the rain concern, which is a good time to remind everyone.
What?
Download the DK Live app and follow DK Live on Twitter because you get the alerts right away.
You threw her for such a loop. You can't expect her to be quick on her feet right now.
Yeah,
I just totally threw her off her game.
I'm so
this is your
blinded
fault,
with
Emerson.
rage, Steve. I can't even think
Yeah,
straight.
there's a lot of not safe for work words she is spitting at me when the camera is not on us here.
You just narked again. You have a problem, Emerson.
Okay, it's just like
Go
it's
ahead.
something every
Go
woman
ahead,
wants.
Emerson.
Every woman
Go
wants to be
ahead.
engaged. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to work out. How about the best value in this game, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Colton Wong here. Like I said, there's not much value at all here on this slate here, but Colton Wong tonight is probably my favorite value at 6,800. If there's one aspect about Hauser's game that he has struggled with,
Yeah, there you go, baby.
Left-handed bats. He's got a 401 WOBA, a 5.23 xFIP against lefties on the road specifically. And Wong's actually batting second, and he's doing that for the first time this season. We've seen him briefly in the leadoff spot, but he's somebody that's usually batting seventh or eighth, so I'm assuming that the Cardinals have realized the struggles that Hauser has against lefties. That's why they put him up in the lineup here, because quite frankly, the Cardinals don't have many lefties to begin with. So Wong batting second at 6,800 feels like a good spot for me.
Doug, who lands on your roster when you're looking for value?
And Lorenzo Cain's got some kind of information on management or something that he's holding over them. They keep hitting him leadoff. I'm not really sure why, outside of just blackmail concerns. But if he's going to be up at the top of the lineup, then he's always going to be a good spot. The plate, like I said, with plate appearance expectations, really the best determinant of fantasy value that you can basically come up with outside of just raw talent. But Cain doesn't seem to have that anymore. But if he's going to hit in front of Grandal and Yelich and these other guys, you are getting him at a pretty cheap price, and especially if you want to stack some of those more expensive bats. He's cheap for a reason. He's been bad, but if he's going to keep hitting leadoff, then buoy to him.
Alrighty, it's that time of the night. Slate approved pick time. Doug, who is your must play for this night's entire slate?
Oh man, there's so many good picks. There's a couple here. I'm going to go JD Martinez because we mentioned just the lefty splits from earlier. It's just too much to ignore. He's just so good. Every piece of information that you want to get in terms of making a baseball projection are working in his favor in this game. So we talked a lot about him before. Martinez is my guy. It's really close though because there's a couple of really good arms here, but I'll go with Martinez.
Steve, who is your slate approved?
There's a good reason why the Braves have a 5.5 run total against Caleb Smith. think that's one of the best stacks of the night. Hopefully goes a little bit overlooked because of the perceived matchup, but the Brave stack, I think, is going to go ham tonight.
Was that in Julian's top stack of the night article? Anyone have any idea? Did
No,
anyone read it?
We do not read that, and I don't recommend you do so.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys, for your help. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys back tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm going to go get murdered by you now.
Yeah, he's got to die. This show will be back tomorrow at 6 without Emerson. The sweat, yeah, be sure to tune in.
Okay, great.